Well, ladies and gentlemen, we are back. That's right. The Sam Franco World Cup podcast. It's been 4 years. We did a little European centered soccer podcast for a little while, but we've decided since the world's largest sporting event has indeed returned, we have decided to come back for more. Sam Franco and Josh Bagriansky joining you here today. Josh, it's been a while. How you been, my friend?
Good, man. Doesn't seem like it's been that long. 4 years ago, the 4 years passed very quickly between World Cups now, it seems like.
I know, right? Well, you've got so much more stuff. I mean, you've got, every 2 year, in the 2 year gap there, you've got the European championships, and then Spain have dominated the last two times of that go around. And then you've also got a Confederations Cup, the third year into a 4-year World Cup cycle. So there's really so much stuff going on that it's really hard to not have any good soccer going on. And then obviously you've got World Cup qualification as well in that time. So there's really never any time where good high quality soccer isn't on. So it's a good time to be a soccer fan right now. This is ESPN's last go around with the World Cup for a while. So we'll try to enjoy that. I'm sure we'll talk about Fox getting it in future episodes of this podcast, but we'll try to keep things positive for now. And we'll start off by kind of giving our thoughts on what's been going on with Team USA these last couple of months. And obviously we're a little behind the eight ball here, but we've got to talk about this. US's all-time leading goal scorer, the man who basically has carried U.S. soccer for the last 10 or so years, Landon Donovan, will not be going to the World Cup. And I think the day the announcement was made, ESPN FC, released or they did a top 10 World Cup moments on their TV show. And one of the things they had released earlier in the day was kind of the background of Landon Donovan's goal against Algeria in 2010 in stoppage time, that the USA was going home, and Donovan scores and puts them through to the next round, unfortunately to be eliminated by Ghana in the next game, which has become all too common of a theme. But Landon Donovan not on the World Cup roster, it's still kind of hard to swallow that.
Absolutely. I'm still a little bit dumbfounded by the decision, to be honest, particularly after watching these last couple of friendlies, and you see 3, 4, 5 guys that you just don't understand why they're on there over Donovan. We hear a lot of people talk about he wasn't in form in MLS, he's not the player he used to be. We all know that. And it's not uncommon. It's not uncommon for an international team to take an older player that maybe hasn't figured heavily in qualifying. Maybe isn't the player they used to be, but you take him because of his experience, what he's accomplished at the international level. And I know that sounds cliche, but you can't tell me on a 23-man roster Landon Donovan doesn't deserve to be going to Brazil. And, you watch Julian Green and Brad Davis, some of these defenders, we took a bunch of defenders. Look at Timothy Chandler, John Anthony Brooks, and I just don't understand how Donovan's experience and ability alone doesn't merit him at least a spot on the 23-man roster. And I mean, we could go on forever about this, but I don't understand the decision in footballing terms, and I have to think that there was something personal or something chemistry based that Klinsmann didn't like, because in terms of a pure footballing decision, I don't see any rationale for it.
Well, I think, ESPN's Alessi Lawless makes a great point about Landon Donovan. It might not be that Klinsmann doesn't like Donovan, or, there's got to be some sort of mutual respect there, as both players were very important to their country's, success in soccer for when they played for their respective teams. Although ESPN kind of going on the day that Donovan got cut from the roster saying Germany's greatest ever player has decided to cut America's greatest ever player. And I'm like, whoa, time out. Klinsmann was very good, but he was not Germany's best ever player. He might not crack the top 10. I mean, he probably would, but top 5, definitely not. I mean, I can give you a Beckenbauer, Lothar Matthäus, Rudi Völler, probably Oliver Kahn even goes ahead of him on that list. And some might even put Miroslav Klose, who has a chance to go to this World Cup and become the World Cup's all-time leading goal scorer. And Klose's a guy who, when you mentioned Donovan, it's like, yeah, did Klose really play that big of a role in Germany's qualification? Not really. And he's up there in age. He's nowhere near the goal scorer that he used to be, but he's had some success at Lazio. And it's funny how, Donovan just gets cut and he scores 3 goals in 2 games. That's kind of one of those things where you see him just getting motivated there. But you mentioned it being personal, and I kind of have to think that might have something to do with it. But going back to what Alexi Lala said, it's not that he doesn't like him; it's that he doesn't understand him. Klinsmann was all about, his life was soccer. He lived, breathed, and ate it when he was a player. He was always trying to get better, always looking for that next level of success. And Landon Donovan is a little temperamental. That's not necessarily what his, ambitions or goals are. So, as two high kind of profile players with big egos, I can see Klinsmann, just maybe not understanding Landon Donovan's personality.
Couldn't agree more. Yeah, it's hard to come out and say that a manager, particularly Klinsmann's stature, this level, would not take someone because he didn't like him. Yeah, I heard that analysis from Wallace too, and I think it was a pretty good point. And he's a guy that has gotten a lot of criticism from fans as well, in terms of not wanting to test himself at the highest leagues overseas, kind of staying around and dominating in MLS. So there are I can understand that Klinsmann as a guy, as you said, wanted to play at the highest levels in Europe, and Donovan kind of guy who enjoys his kind of comfy life in LA, being the man playing for the Galaxy, and he's done a good job when he's going on loan to Europe, and that all may be true, and it probably is to an extent. But that to me, I mean, to not give the guy a spot on the 23-man roster because you don't understand him, it just doesn't make sense to me. And so we go through the other reasons that he's given us. There's that one you gave us. Obviously, he's not going to admit to that. The other reason is that he's not playing great for his club team. Well, you look at a couple of the guys that made the roster. John Anthony Brooks hardly played last year. Julian Green's playing in the 4th division in Germany. Timothy Chandler hasn't been a part of the U.S. setup for a year and a half. So I don't buy that idea. Then you have the he's older idea, the lack of that he's experienced, but he's older. Well, we've taken one of the older rosters to the World Cup of any team, and we have 5 or 6 guys with World Cup experience. So I'm not buying that either. I'm not buying that we're preparing for the next World Cup because we just took a really old roster who's also inexperienced at the international level. So to me, all the footballing reasons Klinsmann have brought up just don't hold any weight for me at all. You mentioned club form. There are guys on the roster who have not been in form and haven't been playing for their clubs. Not to mention it was 7 games into the MLS season, so it's not exactly a large enough sample size. And then you mentioned that he's older and he's not the player he used to be. But we've got, and I don't mean to criticize, a Brad Davis, who I'm very happy for making a roster for the first time, or Chris Wondolowski. These are guys that are also older. But not only are they older, they don't even have experience at the World Cup level. So none of the footballing reasons hold any weight for me. So I have to agree with you. It's a personality thing that he doesn't get Landon Donovan. But to me, that's the sign of a manager that can't get out of the way of his own ego. The World Cup is only about winning. That's the only thing it's about. If you want to build up in qualifying with your system, getting the guys in there, you want to get minutes and all that, I understand that. But when you go to the World Cup every 4 years, you have to have the best 23 players from your country going with you, unless there's some absurd chemistry problem like France with Nasri.
Yeah, no, I agree with that, and it's part of the problem with this whole rationale of preparing for the next World Cup. I'm sorry, there's no guarantee you're going to make the next World Cup. I know USA isn't in a very difficult qualifying zone, but what happens if Dempsey gets hurt, tears an ACL or something during qualification? What happens if Altidore or, some of your important players get hurt? There's no guarantee you're going to make it. And I know not every team, not all 32 teams have a shot to win the World Cup, but you've got to go into the World Cup with that mentality because it only happens every 4 years.
Yeah, and I think it's if that's true, and again, I think that's probably a media-created story.
Right.
If that's true, that's a massive miscalculation by Klinsmann. So much changes in 4 years, and we always talk about this maybe the year or two after the World Cup. People are out there overreacting, talking about, for instance, like Juan Agudelo a year after the last World Cup was the next big thing. Things change a lot over the 4-year period.
Right.
So, as you said, to say you're building for the future when you're going to the world's biggest tournament is ridiculous. It's a way to get you fired, and it's not a recipe for success. So I do think that's a media-created story, but again, it's so confusing to us why this happened. It's like we have to go out and search out angles as to how Landon Donovan, the best American player ever, is not on the plane to Brazil. And it's like we go through all these reasons, And I just, aside from the not understanding him one, which I don't think is a good enough one by any means, we can't figure out why exactly Klinsmann and the coaching staff decided that Donovan wasn't part of the 23. And I think it's something that, regardless of what happens in this World Cup, we're going to wonder about for a long, long time.
Yeah, no question. And we'll have plenty of time to react to that. But as the U.S. Soccer Twitter and Facebook accounts have tried to force down everyone's throat, it's all about the 23 players that are going. So let's go ahead and switch focus now to those guys, and we'll talk about the guys on the team. Unfortunately, I do want to kind of spend some time here talking about guys that we might not agree with the selection. Okay. And I'm going to start with Chris Wondolowski. For me, he has scored, I guess in droves in the MLS at times, but you saw against Azerbaijan 2 clear chances, and the keeper did make a pretty good save on the second header there, but the first header, he heads it right to the goalkeeper, and you can do that against Azerbaijan in May. You cannot do that against, Portugal, Germany, any of those teams at the World Cup. You just can't do that.
Right, absolutely. And, Wondolowski is a guy, and I think there have been a lot of American strikers like this. You look through the Taylor Twellmans and the Pat Noonans, guys that have done very well at the MLS level, but they have been able to cut it at the international level. We all know the international level, whether you're playing Guatemala in a World Cup qualifier or whether you're playing, as you said, Portugal or Germany at the World Cup, it's a different level in terms of intensity, physicality. You're playing with a group of teammates that you don't train with every day. So Wondolowski is one of many of those guys who scored very well at the MLS level. He hasn't done it at the international level. And the interesting thing is he has a good goal return over the last year or so. These goals have come against Guatemala. He had a hat trick against Belize in the Gold Cup, scored a couple goals against Cuba in the Gold Cup as well. And I think he made the roster because of his Gold Cup performance last year.
Then how did Donovan not make the roster, though? I mean,
yeah, exactly.
I hate to say that we're moving on and not, but it's just so frustrating, when you're looking at, like, Gold Cup form. And, dude, Josh, let's be honest. You and I could go out there and score hat tricks against Belize.
Right. Yeah, I know, against Belize, give me a break. And as you said, again, everything comes back to Donovan because we can look through 4 or 5 guys on this roster, and it's like, I just don't understand how they make it over Donovan. And Wondolowski is a perfect example. He's a guy that's probably not going to play too much. And as you said, I don't care that he scored, I think it's like 7 goals in his last 10 appearances or something like that. They haven't come against quality opposition.
Right.
So it doesn't, that's a player that doesn't make sense for me. And I've noticed a lot of the MLS fans, I don't watch a ton of MLS, I should watch more. They're always on board with these guys that play well in the MLS. I'm a Graham Zusi fan, for instance, but I don't think he's the savior. If you listen to a lot of MLS fans, that's what they think. A lot of them think Chris Wondolowski deserves to be on this roster. You have to be able to separate your club football from your international football. You brought up a guy like Miroslav Klose, who, although he has had some success for Lazio, he's been penciled in on the Germany roster, even though he hasn't been super effective with his club sides. It's a different type of football, and to take a guy that's completely unproven because of a strong performance against Belize and Cuba, I don't get it.
Yeah, no, I completely agree there.
And I hate to criticize these guys, man. I feel so, it's a guy that's been fighting for a spot on the squad for so long, and I hate to criticize him, but when he's going, and the best American player of all time, who's not out of his, he's out of his prime, but he's not, he's not washed up, isn't going.
He's still scoring goals.
Yeah, and Wondolowski's a great example of an attacking player that we took that I think Donovan offers more than. And I think he's also an example of a player that we took that shows how little depth we have in the striking category.
Yeah, it's a great point, because if you're talking about just form, there's no way Josie Altidore makes the squad. Right. Unfortunately, he's the only player that can do what he does. And he did a very good job of it against Turkey, and we'll get more into that game in a minute. But it's just holding up the play, being very strong and being able to hold the ball down while the rest of the attackers get forward. And he did a phenomenal job of that against Turkey.
He's looking better. He just needs to get that goal, and I'll be feeling better about him.
I completely agree there. Another guy that just is a head-scratcher for me is Timothy Chandler. He did not look very convincing at all yesterday, giving up. Basically, it's his fault that the goal was scored there by Turkey.
Basically.
Turning over the ball and not even just in your own half, but almost at your own 18. It's like that's something you definitely cannot do. And look, DeMarcus Beasley is another one of those guys who is one of the U.S.'s all-time best players, but he's become a little bit of a liability. But when Timothy Chandler is more of a liability than DeMarcus Beasley, that's a big problem.
Yeah, yeah, and I'm sure we can touch on this a little more as we talk about Turkey, but the back four is kind of worrisome in general. DeMarcus Beasley is clearly the best left back on this roster. You're talking about a guy that was an attacking winger for almost all of his career until a few years ago. Timothy Chandler, basically, I thought yesterday, played himself out of making any sort of appearance in the World Cup.
Oh, no question. I mean, he
It was
did not.
awful.
He was not ready to play at all, and it's just one of those situations where Klinsmann took a gamble, and it's looking like that one's not going to pay off. The last guy I want to talk about on the kind of head scratchers, it's not so much because I don't think he's a good player. Brad Davis is a little head scratching to me just because I feel like the only reason he's on there is because he can deliver a set piece with his left foot.
That's the only reason I can think of why. I mean, again, it's a guy that, and we keep coming back to Donovan. The selection goes against all of the attributes that Klinsmann said he wants in his players. He said he wants experienced players at the international level. He said he wants players that are playing at the highest level and have proven themselves at the highest level. Brad Davis is a good MLS player. He always has been, but he's 32 years old. He's played probably 10 to 15 games for the U.S., and there's a reason for that. So, as you said, he delivers a great set piece, a great ball into the box. I watched him play yesterday, and, he looks like an okay player, but he doesn't look like a guy that really is going to have an effect in Brazil. So, again, very happy for the guy. He's been a long time servant to the game in America, but is he one of the best 23 United States players? I don't think so.
No.
And I hope he proves me wrong, but again, he looks very ordinary out there playing against Turkey. What is he going to look like when he plays against Portugal, Germany, even Ghana?
Well, I mean, conversely, there are definitely some guys that are on this roster that I'm very happy made it. Julian Green is one of them. I know that he's not proven or anything like that, but look, that is a move for the future that needed to be made. Julian Green had a chance to possibly play for Germany down the line, but USA went ahead and said, look, we'll take you to the World Cup now. And he's a player who, it's funny because people try to compare him to Freddie Adu. Here's where that comparison fails. Julian Green has been in a professional European academy type system since he was 13, 14 years old. So he's gotten the proper development. Freddie Adu never had that because he signed with an MLS team at 14 when the MLS didn't really know how to develop players.
Absolutely. That's a great point. The connection between the two players, and as you say, Green has been a part of a world-class development setup for a long time. He's also played with the German youth national team. Freddie Adu is more of a guy, as you said, it kind of was almost media created because of his being signed at the age that he was, coming into a system where he had to play for the first team at the age of 14. Turned out he wasn't all that good. And we'll see what happens with Julian Green. One thing I would like to say about him is a lot of people have an issue with him making the team as such a raw talent, a guy that's proven nothing at the international level, a guy that's looked like a deer in headlights, his 2 appearances for the U.S. But come on, 4 years from now, he may be a part of the German setup. You have to go ahead and jump on this guy now. I have no problem with him being on the roster. I think very strongly that he was given assurances that he was going to play or be selected for the World Cup this summer by Klinsmann, and that's how we were able to recruit him, and that's just the nature of the beast, so I have no problem with Julian Green being on the roster, but once again, this is a guy, no experience, he played on loan, but not playing at the highest levels for his club team, hasn't been a part of the U.S. national team setup.
No, to be fair, he does have some Champions League minutes.
Right, exactly. And
like 15.
Right, yeah, and that's not criticism of him. He's a great prospect. You have to take him. Go ahead and cap him so he's tied to the U.S. That's how things work. And if he doesn't have an effect in this World Cup, that's fine. We've been able to score a top young talent that'll hopefully help us in the next 2-3 World Cups. But once again, we keep coming back to the Klinsmann's supposedly very strict reasons about judging his team. Oh, I just couldn't take Donovan because he wasn't playing enough for his club, and he but meanwhile you take this guy, so it just kind of goes against No, and again, I agree with the decision. I just wish that Klinsmann would be a little more honest and say, look, we need this guy for the future. He has a high ceiling. He could have an effect in this World Cup coming off the bench. That's why we took him. Because Julian Green, a guy that I'm excited for the future. I don't know if he's going to have a big impact this summer.
Well, one thing I will say about Julian Green is when he's played for the U.S., he's gotten into threatening positions. He did so yesterday, didn't have the best touch, but had a very good goal scoring opportunity. It's unfortunate that he couldn't get the touch right. But, Julian Green was a player that I feel like you had to take the risk and take him. Another guy that I was really happy to see make the squad was Mix Diskerud. I think that guy has a very bright future with the United States national team. Another guy who's mixed nationalities. He's also Norwegian. But, obviously, I think in that aspect, that's one where the U.S. is actually a better prospect, to play for than Norway. But, I really like Mix. I think he can come off the bench and provide that spark, as he did against Azerbaijan. And we'll use this opportunity now to kind of transition into the two friendlies we've seen so far on this kind of path to the World Cup. Obviously, the Azerbaijan game was very slow to start. Clint Dempsey pulled from the game early due to a injury concern, but he was able to play against Turkey, so it doesn't look like that's any big issue. But Wondolowski had to go in there, and people were saying, well, maybe Wondolowski won't be ready because he's coming off cold. I don't buy that excuse. Please don't make that excuse, because you have to be ready at all times in this kind of setup. And I feel that Wondolowski kind of wasted his opportunities in that game. And the MVP of the game for me was Mix Diskerud coming off the bench and scoring and setting up another.
No doubt about it. Diskerud's a player. I've always been a fan of his too, and he's he's been a lot more effective off the bench for the U.S. And I think he brings a lot of different attacking qualities to the game. He's a very creative player. He's very good on the ball, and his distribution is good. And he'll pop up with a goal every now and then for you too. Yeah, I'm very happy he's on the roster, and he's kind of a wild card going into the World Cup because he has been so effective off the bench. And you look at the possibility that we might be chasing. Well, it's very likely we may be chasing a match against a Portugal or a Germany in the last 20, 30 minutes. He's a guy that can come off the bench, give us a new edge, and allow us to kind of have a little more freedom in the midfield coming forward. And I think he showed that in the Azerbaijan match. And that was a nice finish, too. Had to get well off the ground to bury home the rebound. And I was happy for him. He's been a guy that's been a part of the setup, but kind of on the outside looking in. He's been a really good footballer for Rosenborg, who are one of the top clubs that aren't in the big leagues in Europe. Yeah, really happy to see him on the team, as you said, and a guy that I think can really have a positive impact on the team in Brazil.
No doubt about it. And we'll jump to the Turkey match now, where something kind of came to fruition for me that I've kind of expected or thought about for a while anyway. Fabian Johnson is wasted as a left back. He needs to be playing further up the field on that left wing side of the attack, because when he can get forward into those positions, we see what he can do. That 1-2 with Michael Bradley is one of the best goals we've seen out of U.S. soccer in a long time. I mean, it was great combination play from Bradley to Fabian Johnson. And look, I realize that you can play fullback and still get forward, like a Dani Alves from Brazil. But here's the problem. The USA is not Brazil. We can't have one of our defenders pushing that far up the field, leaving the defense vulnerable on a counterattack.
Couldn't agree more, man. And there are a few factors to look at with Fabian Johnson. The first is, as you said, can't we afford to be pushing our right and left backs forward against this quality of opposition? I mean, we were getting caught out against Turkey, even against Azerbaijan a bit. I like the idea that we want to attack, we want to push our wide backs up the pitch. But when you do that, if you give the ball away, you're under we have big problems. We saw Turkey have chance after chance yesterday doing that. We were very fortunate that they didn't bury more of their opportunities early in the match. Cristiano Ronaldo is going to bury those opportunities that Nuri Sahin missed yesterday. Simple as that. And he's a perfect example of a guy that, like you said, very versatile. Does he play center mid for his club?
Sahin?
No,
Fabian Johnson.
Chandler.
I'm not exactly sure.
He's played all over. I know he's played all over the pitch for his club.
And
So
that's
he's a
an
very
issue.
versatile guy.
But that's an
Yeah,
issue, if you don't know where to put someone.
yeah, absolutely. So, yeah, I agree. But you know what it also shows? We don't have our back four is really, really a problem. I mean, you talk about Jeff Cameron is now looks like the choice at center back. Who are going to play at right back? Brad Evans didn't make the team. But probably makes sense. Steve Cherundolo is no longer around. That's your right back. On the other side, you're going with Beasley, a guy that, as we mentioned earlier, is an attacking winger for 3/4 of his career, just transferred into a left back recently because he's kind of lost his pace with his old age. I don't know if you move Fabian Johnson up the pitch, who you put at right back.
Well, I think we thought last year it was going to be, during qualifying, the two center backs looked like it was going to be Omar Gonzalez and Matt Beasler.
And Beasler, yeah.
But the problem is Gonzalez has had such a dip in form. You could have had Cameron at right back, but now you've had to move him to center back. Mm-hmm. So what do you do at right back now? I completely agree. That is a huge problem. And I don't know what they're going to do. Is it Fabian Johnson who ends up playing right back and Beasley at left back? I think that might be the best option. Although I love Fabian Johnson being able to push forward more, because we saw with that finish yesterday, that was a world-class finish. He took it on the volley, let it skip off the ground so that the keeper couldn't do anything with it.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's exciting to see players like that link up with a Michael Bradley. He needs guys around him. Bradley's not a guy that's going to score a ton of goals. He needs guys around him that are going to finish the goal off like that. And it's a little disheartening to see a right back doing that instead of a Josie Altidore.
That's a good point. But Josie Altidore knows what he needs to do, and that's hold up the play. And then the other thing about Michael Bradley is, when USA during qualifying was playing that sort of two defensive midfielders formation they were playing, you could probably afford a little more to have your fullbacks push up. Now that Michael Bradley's playing at the top of a diamond midfield, you don't have enough defenders back to be pushing your fullbacks up the field.
Absolutely. And I wonder, the Turkey game yesterday, and you wonder if this is because it was a friendly and it was all for preparation. We were pushing forward, as you mentioned. Left and right back were pushing forward. Bradley was very attacking minded at the top of the diamond. I thought Jermaine Jones, although he played in that defensive midfield, he played better as the game went on. He wants to bomb forward too. And we keep, in the end, we have to be realistic. We don't have great quality at every position. So if we're going to push guys forward like that, we can't make any mistakes. We made a ton of mistakes yesterday, giving the ball away, being out of position. I mean, Turkey had chance after chance yesterday if you go back and watch that game. And it's very, very disconcerting. Are we going to really go into the World Cup thinking that we can play this attacking style possession football against some of the best sides in the world?
They're going to have to against Ghana. You're going to have to go after it against Ghana and get those 3 points.
And maybe that's why we were doing that, because we know that the first match is really important that we win. But then there's we won't know until they actually take the pitch in Brazil. But
if you're so focused though on playing just for that Ghana game, what's going to happen against Portugal and Germany when you have to immediately switch formations on a dime and you're not used to playing like that?
Yeah, it's going to be difficult, and I think that we've certainly seen the holes in an attacking minded U.S. and we also know it's not the strongest back four. So that also makes you wonder about what a defensive kind of park the bus and counterattack U.S. setup is going to look like. I mean, I hate to be that guy, man, but I've never been this pessimistic about the U.S. going into a World Cup. Between the draw and between the way the players are playing right now, I've never been this pessimistic about one of our sides coming into the world's biggest tournament.
Well, World Cups are all about blind hope and optimism, so I'm going to try and keep that mindset. And there are 32 teams that are going to have that blind hope and optimism. And we'll have plenty more time to talk about the U.S. in the upcoming episodes. But for now, time to jump in, and we're going to kind of give a little brief rundown of kind of how we see this tournament going. Obviously, we'll start with Group A. Hosts Brazil, Mexico, Croatia, and Cameroon to finish out the group. And Cameroon actually had a very good draw with Germany yesterday. Samuel Eto'o getting on the score sheet. So good stuff from Cameroon there. And this group, I've got the ESPN World Cup guide or whatever, and they've actually given Mexico a 45.8% chance to get out of the group ahead of Croatia with only 33.3%. I wholeheartedly disagree with that. I think Croatia have a much better shot at getting out of this group because they're so solid. They don't have many superstars. Luka Modric is one of them, but they're just such a solid team across the board that I think Croatia, they might give Brazil. I know they have to play Brazil first, and that's a huge disadvantage. But Brazil better not be too cocky going into that game.
Yeah, this is a fairly strong group in the sense that every side is formidable. There's not going to be any easy matches. Brazil is definitely going to have to take those other sides seriously, but I'm sure you agree with me that at home, particularly at home, they'll probably come out of this group without any problems. And the real battle is going to be for that second spot.
Of course.
I see any of those three teams nabbing that number 2 spot coming out of the group.
I mean, you've got Mario Mandzukic, you've got Eduardo. There are players on this Croatia team that they've played at the highest level and can compete. So,
yeah.
If I'm picking teams to get out, I'm going Brazil 1, Croatia 2.
Okay. I'm actually gonna say this surprised me a little bit, but I think Mexico's gonna get out of this group.
Even without Montes, they played Ecuador in a friendly on Saturday, and Montes breaks his leg. Rafa Marquez also had to go to the hospital. So they're facing some injuries.
Yeah, it's going to be tough. I tend to think it's kind of a toss-up. But I've seen Mexico. First of all, I'm still upset that we put them in the World Cup.
I know. Thanks a lot, Zuzi.
Yeah. And meanwhile, and then they get this draw, and we get stuck with Germany and Portugal and Ghana. But we can complain about that for a while. But I think the Mexican team, they were fortunate to get in. I think they realized that. They've been playing a lot better from what I've seen from them in these friendlies. As you said, the injuries of Montes hurts a lot, but I do think that they have the overall quality to get out of this group. And I look for Giovanni Dos Santos to find his form. He hasn't been the player they've wanted the last 2 or 3 years. I look for him to find his form and have a good World Cup and get them out of the group. But again, as you said, there's a very good argument to be made for Croatia, and Cameroon's a strong team as well. As you said, looked good over the weekend, and another team that they're a bit older, but another team with solid players from back to front.
All right, Group B, we'll jump into that one. Got defending World Cup champion Spain, a very formidable Chile side, the Netherlands, and Australia. Unfortunately, Australia always seems to get pinned into these just ridiculously tough World Cup groups.
Yeah.
Sorry for Tim Cahill and company, but this group is probably Spain's to lose. I think Chile could give them a run for top spot in the group. Netherlands, this is such a different Netherlands team than in 2010 when they made a run to the World Cup final. They've still got good players in Robin van Persie, Arjen Robben, but a big issue with this team is defensively. They're not as strong defensively. There's no Mark van Bommels or Nigel de Jongs to hold down the defensive midfield. So I'm not really sure where a lot of... I know Nigel de Jong is still there, but he's nowhere near the player he used to be. So I just don't see this Dutch side getting out. I got to go Spain and Chile.
Well, if you're going to pick a team of the World Cup to underachieve, Holland is always a safe bet. As you mentioned... other than Ronald Vlaar for Aston Villa,
right.
I don't even know who these guys are that they're fielding across the back four.
What happened to El Hierro Elia? Wasn't he supposed to be the next big Dutch soccer player?
Yeah. And he's everything I read about him is just a guy. We talk. Obviously, he's much better than Freddie Adu, but we talk about that type of comparison. A guy that hasn't developed the mental aspect of football yet. He's very talented, but mentally he hasn't had the consistency at the club level to perform the way that they want. What I'm also noticing about this back line, man, I'm just looking at the roster right now. The ages, you've got 24, 22, 24, 22, 22.
Super young.
And 20. And then you've got Vlaar, who is 29, and a 30-year-old. So they are super young across the back as well. So it's going to be tough. Like you said, Chile's a very good team. They're going to come at you with a lot of good attacking players. Alexis Sanchez, of course, one of the tops in the world.
No question.
Arturo Vidal, one of the best box-to-box midfielders in the world.
And don't forget about Eduardo Vargas, man. That guy can play.
Vargas, very speedy striker. Yeah, it's going to be tough for. That's a great point, man. It's going to be really tough for Netherlands to get out of this group when you consider Chile are going to be their main opposition. Chile have a very good attack, and Netherlands are weak in the back. That may make for an extremely entertaining, 3-2, 3-3 match when those teams meet up.
All right, and we will jump now to Group C. Colombia is the top team in this group, although they will most likely not have Radamel Falcao, one of the better strikers in the world today, and that is really going to hurt this Colombia squad. The other teams in this group, Ivory Coast, Greece, Japan. This is probably the most open group to me with the loss of Falcao for Colombia. I'm going to go off the board here. I think Ivory Coast and Greece. Greece is just this team that always seemed to be a thorn in someone's side. Remember in 2004, I know that's, 10 years ago, but they went into Portugal and defeated Portugal in the final to win Euro 2004. They always seem to be around. They're a very solid team. They might not. They kind of play like AC Milan used to play, very defensive style and try and get the goals when they can. So I'm going to go that I think Ivory Coast and Greece get out of this group. I just think without Falcao to kind of hold down the attack up top for Colombia, it's going to be really tough.
Very, very interesting. I think Colombia are definitely come out of this group. Even without, it looks like Falcao's not going to play. Jackson Martinez, this can be his coming out party. A guy that's scored goals in bunches for Porto. He's definitely on the radar of some big clubs. This is a chance for him to have a real coming out party, and I like Luis Muriel as well going forward. So I think even without Falcao, this is a very strong team, especially when you look at the strength of the midfield. James Rodriguez, to me, a top midfield player. Freddie Guarín didn't have his best season for Inter, but still a very strong player. I still think Victor Ibarbo is a great prospect, a guy with size and pace I like a lot. I think that Colombia, even without Falcao, and from a lot of my friends that are Colombian I've spoken to after the Falcao injury, they weren't too worried. No. This is a good team top to bottom. It's not just him.
Yeah, no, I'd agree with that. I really like Ivory Coast. Yaya Toure could end up being the player of the tournament. The way he's played this year for Man City.
Give him the better.
Yeah,
he's incredible.
No question about it. And with Japan, they're always good. They've got Keisuke Honda, who is one of those players who I believe just has that kind of it factor. You can't really describe it, but he's a very good player. Shinji Kagawa plays for them too, plays for Manchester United. I just don't see Kagawa, he hadn't gotten enough minutes to really, I think, be effective at a tournament like the World Cup. But Japan has yielded one of my all-time favorite commentary moments last World Cup when ESPN commentator Derek Ray was talking about Shinsuke Nakamura, who he said has the left foot that could open a can of tomato soup. So Japan, solid. Not good enough.
Problems too. One thing we always know about the Japanese sides, they vary in quality, but they work so hard. They're incredibly fit. They're not going to make it easy for anyone. They have a chance to get out of the group for sure.
All right, Group D. I really love this group. This group could be the group of death. We talk about USA's group being there, and we'll get to them in a minute. But Group D features Uruguay, England, Italy, and Costa Rica.
Costa Rica.
Yeah, Los Ticos are better than they've been in the past, but it's going to be tough for them. They'll probably be the punching bag in this group. But Italy, and to take a quick aside, I'm so sorry that Giuseppe Rossi isn't going to the World Cup. Oh man, that is such a bummer.
If only he had another country he could play for.
Oh man, I know, right? But unfortunately, no Giuseppe Rossi. I thought it was interesting, especially on the form that he's been. Francesco Totti kind of made himself available for selection, but he was ignored in his pleas to make another run at the World Cup. But I thought the way he's been playing, why not? I mean, he's been phenomenal. Hadn't played for the Italy team since the 2006 World Cup, and that's probably why he was overlooked. But, they've still got some good players. Andrea Pirlo, Gigi Buffon, the ageless wonder, still in goal. And I think the X factor for Italy is obviously going to be Mario Balotelli.
Yeah, always is. And this group is going to be fun, man. But yeah, talking about the Italian teams, like you said, I think it comes down to Balotelli because in tournaments like this, it often comes down to finding a striker in form who's going to score goals in bunches. He's the best striker on their team, certainly in terms of talent. We saw in the last European Championships the effect that he can have on an Italian team that's not great, but we saw he drives them to the finals with a great run of form. So yeah, if he can get kicking and scoring goals and setting and providing for others, I think they have a chance to go deep into the tournament. Also keep an eye on Marco Verratti. I hope he gets some minutes from center midfield. He's a deep lying playmaker that plays for Paris Saint-Germain. One of the best young players in the world. I hope he gets some minutes in this World Cup.
Yeah, we talked about Italy there. That's all I'm going to say about them because I think England and Uruguay get out of this group. I really liked England's crop of young players. I know we talk about teams that underperform at World Cups, and England is definitely always going to make that list. But, if a guy if Roy Hodgson would just get over himself and play the young guy, you got to play Raheem Sterling. You've got to play some of these young, quick, pacey players because this England style of kind of sitting back and playing long balls over the top is not going to work.
Yeah, 100%. This is one of the most different, and I'm really looking forward to watching England play. Even though we know this isn't their strongest side in terms of talent, I'm really this is a totally different England team than we've seen in the past. As you said, they're younger. I think there's less pressure on them. I think they could really surprise some people if, as you said, there is a reliance on the youth. And of course, when you go with the youth, you sink or swim. But if they go with experience, we've seen what's going to happen. They're not going to really, truly be a threat to win the tournament. And really, if you look down that roster, there are so many young players, they're going to have to go with them anyway.
Yeah.
So I think, you mentioned the key guys. I love Ross Barkley.
Oh, gosh, yes. That goal he scored against Man City earlier this season was just a peach.
Phenomenal. And if they're going to go the whole tournament, it's so tough to say this. If they're going to play Gerrard and Lampard the whole tournament together, we've seen it. I don't think it's going to work.
I think Gerrard plays. I don't think Lampard plays as much.
Absolutely. Yeah. Gerrard will play.
Well, Gerrard's just much more important, I think, to the overall flow of the team, especially because at Liverpool he's kind of taken that dropped back role a little more.
He's a box-to-box guy.
Yep.
But look at there's youth everywhere. Wilshire's a strong player. Does Luke Shaw get minutes at left back? I didn't realize he was 18 years old.
Well, and according to Eric Winalda, Aaron Ramsey's on their team, even though he's Welsh for some reason.
Oh, well, they wish. Yeah, they wish they had Aaron Ramsey. But can you believe Fox is going to have? Are we really going to be listening to Eric Winalda announce World Cup games?
Let's save that for a different day. I don't really feel like talking about it.
It's bothering me, man. It's really bothering.
With Uruguay here, Diego Godin, the way he played against Real Madrid, he basically kept Real Madrid off the score sheet for 90 minutes. Mm-hmm. And I feel like he's a very important player for Uruguay. You've also got Luis Suarez, who's hurt right now. Will he be able to recover in time? Some people say yes, some people say no. I think they can still get out of this group without Suarez, with their talent. But they're going to need him if they want a shot to kind of do what they did in 2010 and make a deep run.
Yeah, and I think Suarez will play. Just knowing the type of personality he has, the type of desire. If he can get on the pitch, he's going to go play and he's going to give you his all. But even as you said, without him, they've got that Edinson Cavani guy as well, who's pretty darn good. They took Diego Forlan. Oh, what a surprise! You take an older player with experience over. What a surprise that is. I guess Klinsmann didn't think about that. Anyways, we just go on, look through every roster. There's experienced, successful guys that are coming to the World Cup. But yeah, Uruguay, very, very strong team, particularly going forward. And now you talk about the emergence of a Godin playing next to probably a Diego Lugano in the back.
Yeah.
If they can hold their own on the back four, man, they're going to be as good as anyone in this tournament.
All right, so are we going? I'm going Uruguay, England. Are you going to take Italy over England?
I'm gonna go with Italy and Uruguay.
Okay. Okay.
I like England, and I think it's a toss up between the three. But it's going to be sink or swim playing those young players.
That's a very good point. All right, we'll move on to Group E. The big news out of Group E is, this group consists of France, Ecuador, Switzerland, and Honduras. Ecuador did not play very well against Mexico the other day. For those of you who don't know, my dad's from Ecuador, so I have a lot riding on that team as well. But France, big news. It looks like Frank Ribéry may miss the World Cup, and it might be even more than may. They're saying better than 50% chance Frank Ribéry is going to be out due to a back problem. That's huge for France. That's not very good for them at all. Switzerland, it's funny because weren't they the potted team in this group? They were the number one team, which is just ridiculous that that's how FIFA operates. Yeah. But I think in this group, even without Ribéry, I think France still have the firepower to get out. No Samir Nasri, as you mentioned earlier in this podcast, because of some chemistry issues. But I really do think that this group is going to be France and Ecuador. I think Ecuador, they have enough talent attacking to get forward. Jefferson Montero, Felipe Caicedo, of course, Antonio Valencia. I think Ecuador's big weakness is the defense, though, unfortunately, the defense and the goalkeeper, Banguera, had an awful day against Mexico.
Well, that's the last thing that you want to see, going into the World Cup is a struggling back four, because you're going to be in a lot of, the reality about the World Cup is that a lot of these guys don't play together. Most of them don't play together, so you're going to be in a lot of grinded out, rough and tumble matches. It's crucial you have a back four that doesn't make mistakes. You know more than Ecuador about me, but when you just look through the roster, that back four, other than Coates and the only reason I really know him, I guess, that's Uruguay. I'm sorry for Ecuador.
Ecuador's back four is it's a lot more inexperience than they had going into the 2006 World Cup, when they had a lot more experienced players and guys like Ulises de la Cruz and some players like that. But it looks like Segundo Castillo, their stalwart defensive midfielder, is going to be out for the World Cup in the same injury collision that Montes for Mexico will now miss the World Cup in. So that's a big blow for Ecuador. But they're playing for their fallen comrade, Chucho Benitez, former Birmingham striker who died of a heart attack when he was playing for Al Sadd, I believe, in the Middle East. So a big blow for Ecuador, but I still think France and Ecuador get out of this group.
Yeah, that seems about right. Although I think Switzerland is a toss-up with Ecuador. This is a team that's had a lot of success in international tournaments in the past. They're always, work for each other. They're set up. Their tactics are always good. They have a lot of smart players. I think I'm actually going to go with Switzerland to get out of the group, just because they've had some success in the past doing so. And then Honduras, always great to see them there.
They're a better team than they've been in the past, and they might give somebody a little bit of a headache.
They played some good football in qualifying, so yeah, let's see what they can do. But hard to imagine them getting out of the group. And then France, as you said, odds-on favorites, and a team that I'm really looking forward to watching play in this World Cup. Another team similar to England that's very different in style and personnel than they were 4 years ago.
No question about it. All right, Group F. This is an interesting group. Argentina, Bosnia, Nigeria, and Iran. Nigeria just isn't where they've been in the past. They're still a good side, but they're not as good. I think that Argentina and Bosnia probably have the better chances to get out. And Edin Dzeko could be another guy who people who watch the Premier League know who he is, but maybe not a whole lot of other people do. Edin Dzeko is a guy who could definitely make himself even a bigger name than he already is at this tournament.
Yeah, absolutely. Maybe an outside candidate for the Golden Boot if they can play enough games.
Yep.
And again, this is a group of Bosnia have to be thrilled. Obviously, Argentina is going to be the favorite to get out of any group. But you look at Iran, not the strongest side, and then Nigeria, as you said, is not by any means the Nigeria we've seen in the past. They've got to be very happy about their chances to get out of the group.
Yeah, now Maxi Rodriguez is a guy who kind of has become a super sub for them. We all remember the goal he scored last World Cup, kind of taking it off the chest and blasting one into the net. Or was that in 2006?
I think that was 2006. Wasn't that against Mexico?
That was against Mexico in 2006. That's right. And he's so they have guys that can come out of nowhere and really make the difference. Obviously that guy named Messi's pretty good too. So I think Argentina and Bosnia is a consensus here, although Nigeria could do something.
They could. And, Argentina, I'm looking forward to seeing them in this tournament. They continue to disappoint me as an attacking unit, but you look at the names, Messi, Aguero, Higuain, Lucas Biglia is a very good defensive midfielder, Angel Di Maria. They should come out and score some goals in this group. I think they're going to be really fun to watch.
All right, we will move on now to Group G. Who's in this group, I wonder? Well,
I don't know.
You've got Germany.
They're pretty good.
You've got Portugal.
Oh, goodness.
You've got Ghana.
I feel bad for whoever that fourth team is.
Oh, that's the United States. So, yeah, they're in a very tough group.
Nothing's changed. That's too bad.
Yeah, it's a very, very tough group. I think I think USA is probably overall better than Ghana now. I think Ghana's lost some of their important players. Still a very tough team, and by no stretch is that going to be an easy game for the United States to win. But, I think USA does get that win in game one, and it's all going to come down to what they can do against Portugal, because I feel like Germany probably beats Portugal and Ghana, and maybe resting some guys come time for that USA-Germany game. So
very true. We've got our work cut out for us, man.
Yeah.
When you look at obviously the quality gap between Portugal and Germany, and then the mental block against Ghana, the team that's continually eliminated us from previous World Cups, we got to win that first one, man. And as you said, this is not quite as good a Ghana team as the last World Cup. We got to win that first game.
Well, I hate to be the super pessimist here, but I got to think Germany and Portugal get out of this group.
How could you not?
Yeah, it's not so much about what I think about the U.S. It's what I think about Portugal. And people think Portugal's just Cristiano Ronaldo, and while he's the very, very big part of what they do, he's not it. I mean, they've got Pepe in defense, one of the best center backs in the entire world. They've got a bunch of players throughout the midfield, and they finally have a striker up top in Helder Postiga that I feel like can actually, they've never really had a guy like that who can hold up the play. Paoletta was good for so long, but, from the last 10 years, they just haven't had that guy that could do that.
Yeah, I mean, we've watched them in previous World Cups. They've had to employ Ronaldo at striker just because they needed someone up there that could score goals. They're going to be interesting to watch. I think the key with Portugal is always, can somebody else take the attacking prowess or pressure off of Cristiano Ronaldo? Obviously, he's going to do great, but we've seen in previous World Cups teams literally just key in on Ronaldo, man mark him all over the pitch, and the other guys weren't able to pull those defenders away from him. So the key is always, for me, with Portugal is who else is going to step up going forward and provide goal-scoring opportunities and score goals themselves aside from Cristiano Ronaldo. I think that, going back to U.S., I think that we can get a result against Portugal if we're able, and this is a big if, but if we're able to at least contain Ronaldo in terms of our marking. I think and of course that's easier said than done, but we've seen it done before because they don't have, it's not a Real Madrid where there are world-class, they have good players, but not world-class players surrounding him.
That's a good point.
So if we can do that, I think that we can maybe draw, maybe get a goal on the counter and beat Portugal. But I'm with you, man. I mean, Germany is one of the best teams in the tournament. Portugal is one of the best players in the world and a very good overall side, as you said.
Well, USA, please prove us wrong. Please
prove us wrong. Please, yeah, it would be great, But, you also talk about U.S., it's not just the draw, it's the form.
That's very true.
Obviously, we've had a chance to watch U.S. every match. We haven't been able to watch these other teams, but our form is not good. So when you couple that with the ability of the teams we're going to go up against, I think that we have if you were looking at percentages, I would give Ghana a better chance than us to get out of the group. But it all comes down to that first match with them.
We're right. I mean, that all depends. If USA wins, obviously they have a better chance. If Ghana wins, and they have a better chance. But, I'd like to think that USA is going to win that game and at least give us some hope going into the Portugal match.
Yeah, because, 4 points could get out, especially if Germany especially are going to just sweep through everyone and come out of there with 9 points, which I think is very probable. 4 points could definitely get you out of the group.
4 points could get you out, but USA is going to need to beat Ghana and get a score line there. Like a 3-1. So you can have that +2 going into it. Yeah.
And I will say one thing: we're fortunate to be playing that game first.
Yes.
We come into the tournament with confidence, feeling good about ourselves. As every team does, as opposed to maybe having already played at Germany and potentially being dismantled by a superior side. We're very fortunate. It's set up nicely, where we can play our easiest, not to say it's easy, but our easiest fixture first, and then try to get something out of those final 2 matches and get out of the group.
All right, last but not least, Group H. This group consists of Belgium, Russia, South Korea, Algeria, probably the group I know the least about, other than this Belgian team, who is just loaded this time around. I mean, you can run down the names: Romelu Lukaku, Benteke. You've got Courtois in goal, who just
Eden Hazard. They're great.
Yeah, and Vincent Kompany as well. I mean, Courtois just starred for Atletico Madrid in the Champions League, and I feel like this team across the board, it should be a favorite that could possibly win the entire tournament. In terms of the second team to get out of this group, I don't know a whole lot about any of them. I'm going to say South Korea just because they've shocked before, and this Russia team, it just doesn't seem to be where they've been in the past.
Yeah, it's a tough one. Like you said, it's two teams we haven't watched a lot.
Fabio
Russia.
Capello is Russia's manager, to be fair.
What's that?
Fabio
Oh,
Capello
Capello.
is
Yeah,
Russia's
yeah, yeah,
manager.
yeah. So they do have a manager, and in a group like this, tactics are going to be so important. Because the 2, 3, and 4 teams, obviously, we say Belgium gets out, but I'd say 2 through 4 are very evenly matched. So he definitely gives them an advantage. They also have a great goalkeeper in Igor Akinfeev, one of the tops in the world for me. But not a lot other than that. Not the teams we've seen in the past from Russia. So I actually think South Korea is a team that always tend to surprise people. Again, a team that works very hard. They have a lot of quick, fast players always. So I like South Korea to be the second team out of this group. But Belgium, you nailed it, man. I mean, I know they're a small footballing nation. If you look at the first 11 of this team, they stack up against anyone. And we're not saying that as an exaggeration. As it's great to have a dark horse. They really do stack up 11v11 versus any team in this tournament.
No question about it. And we've gone over the groups. We'll jump into our dark horse and favorites for the tournament now. You just mentioned Belgium. They might be both of our dark horse. I mean, they are so good. I think calling them a dark horse might be a disrespect to how good this team actually is.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And that's the only reason I'm not going to call them my dark horse is because to me, as a team that's watched all these players and know that they're going to come out with a Fellaini, that they're gonna be out there with an Axel Witsel.
Don't say Fellaini, dude. He's been terrible this year.
Fellaini's gonna have a good World Cup. I promise you, he's gonna have a good World Cup. But yeah, I
Don't
know
tell that to Manchester United fans.
Your boy for United, yeah, that's true, very true. So we'll see. But the thing is, even if they don't say Fellaini doesn't feature, you've got Moussa Dembele, you've got Eden Hazard, you've got Kevin Morales. You've Stefan Defour, who's one of my favorite players that a lot of people don't know about.
They're so good.
They are absolutely. You've got Januzaj. They are stacked.
That's right. Januzaj made the team. A lot of people didn't think he would, but he made the team. So, Belgium, they could win the whole thing. They really could win the World Cup, and I would not be shocked.
And the only reason that I think more people aren't predicting them to win the World Cup is just because they're Belgium. They're a tiny footballing nation. But this team is just so strong. I can't wait to watch them play. And they're so good back to front. In
terms of my World Cup favorite, it's going to be tough to beat Brazil for anybody, the environments and being in this tournament. But, I thought Germany had a shot in 2010. I think the players were a little bit too young and not experienced enough to take on the moment. I think Germany wins this World Cup. They have such a good front to back roster. I could run it down. Thomas Müller, Götze, Royce, in goal, Manuel Neuer, one of the best in the world, if not the best. Philipp Lahm is, just ageless, still playing fantastic soccer. I think Germany wins the World Cup. I really do.
Nothing wrong with that bet. Again, they've got the quality, they've got the experience, they've got a great manager. And as you said, Neuer might be the best goalkeeper in the world. So, you look at it, this is a team that goes to penalty kicks, and you've got a goalkeeper that stands at what is he? He's about 6'5".
Yeah, that's about right.
And he has a really long reach, great at saving penalty kicks. As we saw him save a penalty from Mesut Ozil as an Arsenal fan, I remember that in the Champions League. But again, when you have that quality on the ball, you have that type of goalkeeper. Hard to bet against them. Although I like Brazil, just being as virtue of being the hosts.
Right.
They're going to be tough to beat, but there are a slew of teams that could win this World Cup.
No question about it. We just talked about Belgium obviously being one of my cannot wait. We are, 10 days away from Brazil and Croatia kicking things off as only the Samba boys know how to. So, Josh, looking forward to it. Looking forward to talking with you all World Cup long and providing the masses out there with our just depth of soccer knowledge and fantastic analysis.
Yeah, we are not two guys. I know a lot of people just watch the World Cup every 4 years. That's fine. But it's important to get some opinions from people that have been watching these same players play at the top levels in club football over the last 4 years. So I think this will be a good place to come for a little bit of background and perspective on the teams and players in Brazil.
No question about it. This one was a little long, about an hour long, but hey, the first one's always got to, break the ice a little bit. We'll try and
Donovan for that.
Well, we'll try and tighten it up a little bit next go around. But for Josh Bagriansky, this is Sam Franco, thanking you guys so much for listening to us, and we will be back very soon with another episode of the Sam Franco World Cup podcast. We end as we will always end with the classic quote from Eric Cantona: "Play beautiful, my brothers."